Hello everyone and welcome back to another Stormworks video. In this video we are back with the next part of the Q&A with developers. Hello developers, how are you doing?
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, and welcome to the next session. So we're going to be having a look at some of the questions that was posted by the community in the latest Q&A session where people could go and put their questions forward to developers. So we're going to be going through as many as we can. There was so many that were asked. I think there's nearly 1,000 questions on the list here. So we'll go through a lot of them. All right, so we're going to start heading back in there so we can double check to see if we've got coal in all of these. But in the meantime, let's go and start with the first question, and probably the most asked question in the Q&A of this week, and that is going to be, when is the weapons DLC coming out?
So we have answered this question a little bit last time. I think it's going to basically be the same answer. So it's the next major update, and we haven't announced the release date yet. And I think that's largely because we kind of don't really know. We're still putting the last few finishing touches. I think we want to add a few more components to the DLC. We want to add some extra bits and pieces. We also want to get the store page set up because obviously DLCs have their own store page on Steam, so we need to get that done. And maybe it needs a trailer as well. Probably, I think it needs a trailer if it's got its own store page, so we need to do that as well. So there's a few bits to do, and then I think we'll announce it and we'll go live with the store page at the same time. I want to get that announced as soon as possible. I think it's just a case of finishing it off. It is the next major update, and they typically take 2, 3, or 4 months. So it will release somewhere between 2 and 4 months. Oh, you're going a bit fast there. Since the last major update.
Fantastic. Cool. Next question that we're going to move into is there any plans to limit the amount of frequencies that we have in-game?
I mean, not really. I think, we easily could. It's probably just one line of code to do that kind of thing. But I think a lot of players do like having lots of frequencies, so that's kind of a question of taste, isn't it? And I think some players like having lots of frequencies, some don't. Don't think we're going to offend many players by changing that or not changing it, but we will offend some. So I'm not sure what the point in changing that would be, other than limiting the game and possibly breaking some vehicles.
Yeah, cool. Another question that came through, or the next question that came through at least, was, will there be larger cities or towns in the future?
Potentially, we got an unannounced major update where we might be looking at some of that stuff. But we shall see. I think as part of a technical limitation is that the physics does start to struggle when you get the situation where your vehicle is surrounded by physics. So, for example, this kind of tunnel situation here, you've kind of got your train and it's under an archway, and that starts to get a little bit expensive on the physics. If you imagine lots of vehicles driving between buildings, that could potentially be an expensive scenario. You've got, like, if you take your train through a tunnel, for example, I think that's where the physics goes the lowest. So we're just a little bit wary. Shall I jump in here? Jump on board. We're just a little bit wary. We don't want to obviously create a performance problem. But yeah, cities would be cool. I think with Stormworks, you kind of want to be able to go inside buildings, don't you? You don't want to have doors that don't open and stuff like that you get in a lot of games. You want to be able to explore, and it all wants to work.
I think it depends on the scale of the city, I think. But maybe if there was, let's take for example 10 buildings instead of, let's say, 3 or 4. So like a town that was the size of, let's say, North Harbor here where we are right now. I don't know, this is my opinion and my guess here. I don't think every single building will have to have an interior, but maybe some key buildings. I don't know. That's just my thoughts, and I'm sure the community has their own thoughts on the matter.
Well, yeah, sure. Let us know. I think this is a particular thing where we kind of need to gauge the the priority of such a feature as well, don't we? We need to sort this issue tracker out so that we can get a better measure on what's popular and what's not so popular.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's go and move on to the next one. So the next one is, will there be any further performance updates regarding nuclear reactors and steam turbines?
I'm going to say yes. We've got a few bugs on the board for nuclear and steam that we just haven't got to yet. And so there's some stuff to fix there. Some stuff that we've looked at that we're not really happy with it. Do we want to start rebalancing stuff? I don't necessarily think so. I think that people have made quite a good range of stuff, but we would want to look at workshop creations and community creations and get a better gauge for how that stuff performs versus other stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's obviously a hot topic. We don't really want to start breaking creations, so I don't think we're going to do any big rebalances. I think we'd look at doing tweaks and fixes.
Okay, fantastic. Let's move on to the next one. So another question that came in, what about pivots that can be driven by engines? So obviously at the moment we've got pivots that can be used with electric, but I think this is coming in line obviously with now having steam and nuclear and coal. I think people are obviously wanting to move pivots or pistons, or have at least pistons, using steam power or just thrust or torque instead of using electrics.
Yeah, so I think that kind of thing is actually potentially possible. I know we had a big problem with the old turbos that we trialed as part of modular engines, that where you've got the concept of going from fluid pressure into torque and back again in both directions, and that was actually quite a big problem, because going from fluid pressure to torque, the conservation of energy equation essentially didn't match. So you got this infinite power problem. So we couldn't do that. With the other way around, though, we did put some stuff in for the torque to fluid. I think that's the same direction, isn't it? So yes, we could potentially do some torque to robotic force stuff, but it's probably not going to be bidirectional. We probably can't have it both ways. I guess it kind of is both ways, isn't it? Because you've already got the wheels that do a similar thing. So yeah, we could do robotic parts that are torque powered. I suppose a little bit of the nerve is that we're making the game more complicated than it needs to be. You can always already do all this robotic stuff with the electronic systems. So making it torque powered, is it that going to make the robotics somehow better? I don't know. So I'm unsure, and I think that is quite a niche. I'm not really sure why this is being asked for. Is it the niche situation where players want to build their own massive wheels using the new friction blocks, or what? I'm not sure.
Cool. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Now, some of these have been asked already, and we're gonna try and steer away from some of the ones that have been asked a lot. But another one that has come through here is going to be, when will you be able to work on one creation in multiplayer in theory? So if you're playing with your friend, when can you build on a creation together?
I think that's the most requested feature at the moment, isn't it? I think if you look on the issues board and sort by most requested that hasn't been closed, that's the top one. It's very, very, very popular. So it is on our radar. We are thinking about it. We haven't started working on it, and it would be a major update. So it's not planned for this year, because we've already working on all of this year's major updates. But it could happen next year. It is very, very popular, and we do want to do what players want us to do. So it's something we are looking at, where we are thinking about, and hopefully it'll make it into next year.
Yeah, cool. Another one came in is saying that, are you guys planning on branching out and making more games in the series, or is it just going to be Stormworks and Stormworks DLC?
That's such a complicated question. I think it is. It's more complicated than it should be. I think there's a lot of stuff in Stormworks where we do want to resolve it, and it'd be a lot easier to make certain improvements to the game starting fresh with a blank canvas. But I think the concept of blank canvas and Stormworks kind of in the same sentence is quite like an oxymoron. The issue is that there's a lot of expectations around Stormworks, and I think anything that was called Stormworks 2, I think would have very, very loaded expectations that would be very hard for us to deliver upon. So I'm not sure. We're not working on a new game right yet. Would it be Stormworks 2? I don't know. Are we interested in this kind of area? Yes. I mean, I think if you look at what certainly I've done in the past, the games, we're never going back to that other stuff. It's Stormworks, physics-based games, and user content and design-based games are definitely our future. I think it's just a question of what form that takes. So of course there will be new games. There will be new games where you build stuff. Whether it's going to be Stormworks 2 or whether it's going to be something distinctly different, I think it should be something distinctly different. So I don't think we want to just make Stormworks again. I think we'd want to make a new game that was better and had its own twist and focus on it.
Cool, fantastic. Another question. Let's go in. So the next one is: will you guys ever add preset hulls in the example category?
Yeah, I'll write that down now. It's a really good suggestion. I think it's just the case of getting around to putting together a set of preset hulls. I think we probably want to use something off the workshop, so we need to find something we like and talk to the creator and get it in. We've got a plan to do other preset content as well, but preset hulls is a very good one.
Yeah, cool. Let's go on to the next one. So another question came in is: will you ever be able to recruit AI or NPC people, AI in game, to act as workers, like maybe crew in your boat or pilots in your plane?
So that's something we've kind of been working towards in a sense. We've just gone past an AI ship on our right hand side. I think, is that an AI ship?
Correct, it is.
Well, I mean, that's part of the AI update, is where that's kind of like a milestone between here and AI crew. I think the idea that you could potentially start to buy AIs and then assign them to a seat and get them to do a specific role is something we've been building into the AI system. I don't think it's quite there yet, but I mean, in some senses, it is already possible to make a game script where you can buy an NPC, you can put them in a chair, you can tell them to drive the vehicle they're in to a location. There's obviously going to be limits there.
Yeah, exactly. There are the limitations to it, because I've also been looking into this for add-ons, as I'm sure you.
Oh well, you're the expert there.
As you know, with my add-ons that I love to create. So, like for example, like getting an AI to, in theory, let's say, control a spotlight and focus on burning ship. Getting the AI to know that firstly there's a burning ship there and that it should be focusing it on the burning ship. There's the limitations there, if that makes sense, without you physically telling it, hey, that is where you need to point at, and then continue tracking that target, whether you're using like a gimbal camera or something else. That it's hard to read the world data, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but actually we've solved some of those problems in the upcoming Weapons DLC. There's going to be some new AI modes.
Well, that's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping for. Yeah,
pointing part of your vehicle at a target can be. I think that will be possible after the weapons update, because we are adding some new AI modes for them to be able to point at stuff as if they were a turret. Yeah,
because then that in theory opens up a lot of doors, because that would not just be, let's say, controlling a searchlight, but that could be for, do firefighting missions where you might employ someone, get an AI crew person to be on the water cannon, and then just trying to focus on the water cannon, or I'm guessing obviously with the weapons DLC that maybe being a machine gun or a cannon, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll note that one down, because actually this is an area of the game that we could expand on quite a lot. You can imagine that if we can, we're already adding the ability in the mission stuff to be able to tag a seat type. You've already seen the AI type drop down on seats.
Yep.
I think that's there. Yeah. So we could add a fire turret drop down, and then of course that AI could automatically just start shooting at any fire it sees, rather than you specifically having to tell it to target a specific fire or whatever. So there's this big area of improvement that we could do.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. That sounds interesting. Let's see if we can move on to next one. So there's another question that came through: is there any plans to add a challenge mode in Stormworks?
I don't know what challenge mode is.
So I don't know exactly what they're referring to. I'm just trying to put together from the 5 words that's in this question. Maybe like, I'm either thinking one of 2 ways: either build challenge mode or a rogue mode. But we kind of have that already, where a user can go in and change their own settings for a game. So I don't know, maybe a challenge mode, like a monthly challenge. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something here.
Yeah, I don't think we'd be doing that better than the Stormworks community and the Stormworks YouTubers such as yourself. I don't know whether we're going to be able to do that better than you. I wouldn't say we would. The idea of a challenge mode, like a monthly build challenge kind of thing, could be very, very cool, but I don't know if that's something that we should be taking ownership of when there's already people in the community doing that already. Yeah. I think that there's yourself, and I've seen other people running challenges as well. It's quite a popular thing. So presumably that is what a real challenge mode is, then probably not.
Great.
But thank you for keeping the question short, at least.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next one. Turnable valves. And there's a second part of it also, which is weather radar for aircraft. So there's 2 questions there. Turnable valves that you can interact with your hands, go up to it, maybe press E and Q to turn it on or off. And then the second one is a weather radar. So I'm guessing the weather radar, what would you use it for, considering we've already got the sensors?
So you've already got the weather sensors, you've already got the map, you've already, you press M and you've already got the weather tabs there. Yeah. And I think that's kind of it would be cool if you had to build your weather map yourself using weather buoys and so on, or
that's an add-on
radar kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's easily done by an add-on, I guess. If you wanted to do it in Lua, and do it in the video, like Lua displays.
Yeah, I think the issue really is it doesn't work with the existing weather system, does it? We've already got all of the weather data on the map anyway, and what's the radar going to show? It should be showing clouds and, I suppose, moisture content in the air, or whatever radar bounces off the weather radar. I'm not an expert, so I don't think it's going to work particularly well. So that's the kind of thing where I'm tempted to not go there. It sounds like a lot of work to just get the exact same information you've already got by pressing M and then clicking on the weather tabs.
Cool. Next one is, in a recent poll, there was a option for ice breaking feature when it's the game. Is that something that you guys are thinking of doing, or maybe putting to the game?
Well, I would love to. It didn't get enough votes, though. I think it wasn't high enough on, and I think if you look at the stuff we are working on, it's all just the top voted stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I would love the ice breaking thing. I think it would be awesome, and it'd be very Stormworks kind of thing, and it's another feature that you could only get in Stormworks. So I'd be really keen to do it, but it is a major update, and it didn't get into the top 5 or 6 voted items last time. I think it was around the middle of the pack kind of thing. So we shall see. I know a lot of players aren't really going to the Arctic or playing in the Arctic. I think the default spawns being down near the Sawyer Isles kind of draws people down there, and people don't go to the Arctic as much anyway. So whether it be impactful enough, I think these are all things we're considering when we think about that update. So I don't have an answer for you. I would like to, but I think it would have to be a more popular feature for us to do the huge amount of work to get icebreaking working.
Okay. Another question that comes in is there a chance for deformable terrain, i.e. or example being that you can use diggers or you could create tunnels in games, you could actually interact with directly the world as it is right now?
I think it's quite a fundamental change to the game because we've already got all our content. We've got so many islands already in the game. We've got hundreds, if not thousands, probably hundreds. And with that deformable terrain, I think you're talking about a different basis for the terrain to be organized as a different data structure. It's like a voxel kind of data structure, like Minecraft, or like Astroneer, the kind of systems that they use. So it's far too late, I think, for that kind of change in a new game. I think that would be really cool. I think that's something we've learned a lot with building Stormworks, is that the ability to edit, the ability to author, the ability to design is what the game is all about, and it's a real core of the game, and the more of that stuff we can get in there, the better. So that would be something we'd be very interested in doing in a future game. But for Stormworks, I think it's probably an unrealistic change to. It would be too drastic a change to make at this point.
Okay, cool. Let me see what other ones we have. Any plans to increase the core thread count of the game to allow higher performance? Now, if I'm correct in saying this, that you did move several months or a year ago, you did move each thing onto its own thread. So physics has got its own thread, logic has got its own thread. If you have something like that, if I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah, exactly. So the game is got a lot of threads running at the moment. Obviously, the thread balance, I think, is what people are talking about more so. I mean, I'm just opening up my resource monitor at the moment, and I can see that one of my cores, there's quite a few of my cores have got a load on them between 50 and 60%. I think the game definitely benefits for up to 4 cores, because I think the ocean's simulating on a separate core, the physics is, the logic and rendering are on separate cores as well, and then you've got stuff like networking, and there's a bunch of other stuff that just has its own thread. So there's already quite a big distribution. I think you're benefiting quite a lot from having up to 4 cores. Above 4 cores, you probably don't really get any benefit. But also you've got to appreciate that most people don't have more than 4 cores.
Yeah.
So we then start to optimize the game for only a small number of players. Plus, it's not really a realistic thing to do. And if you look at video games, I think people have this expectation for Stormworks that just isn't true for other games. I don't think you'll be able to find many of the games that have better multi-threading than Stormworks. It's because Stormworks is so simulation intensive, and there is a lot of work to do on the CPU. We have the opportunity to distribute it over a few cores, but we have done. The physics can't be split into more than 1 core without a huge rework and inventing multi-threaded physics, and this is something people ask for quite a lot, as well as the multi-threaded physics doesn't exist. There's no game with multi-threaded physics. I think we have separate thread physics, which is what most games have when they refer to having multi-threaded physics. So multi-threading is already pretty good. Obviously, there is usually the one thread which is your choke point, and that's different for different people. Some people have a more powerful CPU and weaker graphics, in which case you find that their physics is the slower thread. Other times it can be the graphics thread that even just the CPU thread for processing the graphics can become the choke point, or it can also be that the GPU becomes the choke point and things render slower. But we've already improved things quite a bit, and I think it is a long way to remember back, but when we did do the multi-threading update, we did increase performance by about 40%. It was a massive improvement.
Cool. Let's see if we can find. So this one I think is kind of mixed in with the question we had earlier on, which is there any intention to add more steam propulsion? Like pistons, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to add pistons. I don't want to go off and start talking about stuff we haven't done yet, and we haven't done it yet. But I think there's a few Steam components that we would like to add. I usually try just not to discuss stuff that we haven't worked on yet, because it's not good to be to be talking about stuff that's not even been designed or developed. It's not fair on players, I think, because it can confuse expectations. So I won't touch into that too much, but I do like the ideas of pistons. There is a card for us to look at that kind of thing. I think steam whistles is something we're considering looking at as well.
Cool. Another question, actually quite a few questions I see related to this, is one, more islands being added to the game, and second, following that on with extension to the train lines. This is, I think, questions that we've seen already before in previous Q&As.
Yeah, so I think the last time we added it, I said that's a great idea. We're going to think about it, and we thought about it, and we might be working on something that's not announced yet. You may have seen stuff leaked, and so there might be something going on there. And certainly, I will say, if we are to add new large island to the game, then train lines would be a big part of that, because players are asking for train stuff so much. It's for a lot of players, Stormworks is a trains game, and while it might not be a helpful expectation in many regards, the situation is what it is, and I think we're trying to please everybody. So extra train lines would be something that we would want to add to new content.
Cool. Another question is, do you guys plan on adding any reflective strips to clothes or vehicles or something?
Reflective, that's a cool idea.
Like reflective pieces or paint, reflective paint maybe?
Yeah, that's nice. I'm not sure if I've seen. I mean, I think some video games must have done like the reflective strips you get. I was like, because it doesn't sound like it'd be too difficult to do, but it's quite a Stormworksy thing, isn't it? To be able to
search and rescue,
Yeah, exactly. That's quite cool. We hadn't considered that at all. I don't know whether there's an issue that's been created referencing that. Probably has. There's like 100,000 issues and feature requests, but I hadn't actually thought of that one. I'll write it down because it is quite an interesting one. It's kind of quite a nice little touch. I think the only thing is it's cosmetic in nature. It's got a little bit of mechanic into it, but it's what is a largely cosmetic change. Might be a lower priority.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Are Armoured Blocks going to come with the Weapons DLC?
I don't think so at the moment. I think we've made the weight block to be the armored block, and that is, I think it's got an increased
durability.
Penetration resistance, because we've got the different ammo types, and one of them is the armor piercing ammo type, and that all the ammo types fundamentally have a different mechanic, and the armor piercing one, rather than impacting once, it will impact and then continue to penetrate through blocks and impact at every block it penetrates. So it's got a different kind of damage shape, and I think that slows down more on the weight blocks, but I'm not sure. So something that we haven't done is some concept of armored blocks, but I mean, it could happen after the release. I don't think it will be in the initial release of the DLC, and it really depends on how players are using the DLC, how players are playing, and how useful a feature that would be.
Cool. Another question is, will we get some more jet engines in the future so we can make smaller jets?
Smaller jets. I don't know. I think this has been asked before.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I don't know. Anything could happen. We've not got any plans for making the new jet engine stuff. I think we're not entirely happy with the existing jet engines because of the power balance, because they're too powerful. but something we can't really address. If we added new smaller jets, could we address it then? Well, no, because players are going to complain that the smaller jets aren't as powerful comparable to the bigger jets. So then we're just adding broken components. It's a little bit of a difficult area to work in, where it's going to be difficult for the overall situation to be satisfactory. So I don't know. It's giving me a headache just thinking about it.
Cool. So another one came in is with the weapons DLC. Is there going to be a possibility to be a pirate? Very serious question here.
I mean, I think there's already the possibility to be a pirate of the game. You can make yourself a pirate ship and maybe even make a pirate flag with a few hinges on it.
Yeah.
I think if you mean that, is there a possibility to be there in the kind of the game mode? I mean, I suppose you can always kind of already know you can't really take over AI ships very easily, can you? Because usually the cockpits are sealed off. Not always.
No,
I'm not sure.
Always, yeah.
So yeah, can you be a pirate? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the world of Stormworks is what you make it. We're not planning on adding a pirate mode or anything, or a pirate mission, but I think yeah, you could add a piracy mod with the add-on editor with a little bit of Lua scripting, take over some vessels and ransom them back. I don't know.
Another question that came through is, would you ever revisit the Sawyer Island and redo the roads to make them wider and less bumpy?
It's a tricky one. I think I've seen this asked elsewhere in the questions list as well about changing roads around. I think we don't want to change the style of Stormworks. Could we do some fixes to the Sawyer Islands? Yes, we could. I think overall there is some stuff that's not great, but I mean, it's just the nature of Stormworks, isn't it? That it is quite like a blocky, and some of the road changes are smooth, and some of the road changes are not so smooth. If there was definitely broken stuff, then fair enough. But if it's the kind of stuff that can be worked out by simply changing the design of a vehicle, isn't that the game itself?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know that there is some geometry that pops out, but divots and bumps in road on an island in the middle of the ocean, where the road maintenance might not be too great, isn't entirely unrealistic. That it doesn't work like a racing track. So I'm not sure. I'm not quite ready to admit that that's broken at this point. We are looking more carefully at future biomes. And I think certainly I know that there's a lot of work going into keeping train lines smooth. I'm not sure about the road situation, but I think the roads are fairly smooth as well. So that solution may be solved with a future biome, for example.
Cool. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Are you planning on implementing any new types of vehicle seats?
There's always the opportunity for more seats. I mean, we don't have any on the list at the moment. I remember we did obviously clear a few up with the last seats update, where we added like the driver's seat and so on, and the compact seats. Are there any weapon seats coming in? I don't think so. So we don't have any seats on the list. If there are seats that you want, get suggesting. Get on the put a feature request on the issue tracker. And it all gets read, and especially, if it can become a popular request, then it's a lot more likely to happen. I know that seats have been popular in the past, and we've seen certain seat suggestions get highly voted, and they've ended up in the game. So it's all very possible.
Cool. Another question is, will we get an option to test more than one mission or environmental tile at a time, such as test all tiles in the mission editor?
I see. Yes, I mean, that is obviously a limitation to the default setup, isn't it? I think that feature's added as kind of two functions, really.
Wasn't it it was kind of like a workaround, wasn't it? It was like it was kind of like a bridge between obviously the old UI we had pre-version 1, and then obviously a bridge to the new Lua scripting in theory, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was an important change to make, because that's how players played the game. They get the mission content and they want to spawn the
vehicle and test it,
edited vehicle and test it, as a mission rather than spawning it through the workbench. And that's absolutely fine, and that's what a lot of players were doing. And that does cover, I would probably say, 99% of the use of that button. I would say the other 1% of the use of the button is people actually just testing mission content that they're creating and stuff like that. The idea that there's this niche situation where you want to do all tiles, that can be done with a simple script. I know people sometimes don't like me to say, learn to Lua scripts to do that, but I think it is a good answer when it is a niche area of the game that is only affecting a small number of players who want to play the game in a specific way. The tool is there to do that, but we're not necessarily polluting the UI with buttons that 99.9% of players aren't going to need to press.
Cool. Let's go on to another question. Is infrared or thermal sensor, is that something possibly with weapons DLC?
I think this is a component. I mean, we've got some. Do we have any new detection stuff? We were thinking of adding a new radar sensor that was specifically designed for missiles. The IR sensor, I guess that could be a similar kind of component. And what else is there? Yeah, I mean, that stuff could be potentially quite good to have some kind of new sensors. I know that missile design and weapon design is just such a big part of the weapons DLC, and being able to make cool mechanical stuff that is automated and targets itself, or even just semi-automated stuff where the player is still targeting stuff, but then there is some automated level, for example with a CIWS gun, where you need to aim at the target and fire, but then there's some level of automated tracking that then does the precise aiming and so on. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do there. I think it's going to become a very, very big part of playing the weapons DLC, is the cool stuff that people have created, and you're already seeing it on the workshop with people's missiles that can track and stuff that are just kinetic missiles. But I think that's going to become a bigger part of the game. So yes, it'd be good to get some more sensors in there. I think there's the radar question that I don't know if we've answered yet. It's been going on for so long, but I think there's a series of sensor stuff that we'll be interested in looking at. If not for release, it would still be possible to happen after release, but I mean, I think we want to get as much stuff done before release as possible. So it just depends if we have time or not.
Okay. Cool. So a couple more questions, because now we're kind of running out of time. But breakable glass, that's another question that came through. And then while we're talking about breaking and damage, any different or any change possibly coming to the damage model, so actual blocks can get damaged, like let's say for example your wing can fall off or things like that?
So I mean, that's already part of the game in a sense that you can make stuff that's multi-body, stuff that's got connectors on it, and stuff can fall apart that way. If you mean as a dynamic system in the game, I think that's probably a no, simply because of how big a fundamental change it would be to make to the game. So I think we'd probably not be doing that in this game. It would be a future game where we start to implement that from the start, rather than trying to tag it on at the end when it's such a core part of the game. The damaged windows, I think it's a cool idea. It could potentially happen, but we're not planning on doing that feature at the moment. It's certainly not scheduled. And again, so the damage blocks, I think, really is a big one. People ask it a lot. People ask, is that going to be part of the weapons DLC? I do wish it could be. I think it's just the case that rebuilding vehicles dynamically while they're loaded in and making modifications to it does have a lot of technical impacts, technical ramifications, where we are spending several seconds generating buoyancy data and stuff that would become invalidated if we edited the vehicle. So yeah, it's a big problem. It's not a problem that's not solvable, but it would be a very painful change to make at this point in the game. It would be a lot easier to do as a new game.
Cool. Let's see what else we have on the list here. When are you going to add dogs into Stormworks?
Oh, I was very disappointed that Stormwoofs didn't get more votes last time. I mean, you know, I dream about all the cool stuff that could be added to Stormworks just as much as the next player. I think some kind of more sophisticated animal feature would be awesome, but it's just a case of, you know, when/if we'll ever get there. I know there's a lot of features that we're already committed to. There's a lot of stuff we want to fix. You know, there's a lot of fixes that we want to do. There's a lot of stuff that's broken that we really want to get through. And we've got a lot of work there. We've also committed to a lot of other stuff. Cosmetic features like dogs, I don't know. It would be really cool to get there with just a general animal feature where we can add various different creatures into the game and they behave in a way you'd expect. We've just got so long to go. You know, we've already got this year really jammed up. We've got so much stuff that we just want to get on top of. I don't know when that's going to happen / if it's going to happen, but hopefully I would love it. I would love some more animal stuff.
Cool. So we'll finish off 2 more questions. Our next one will be trying to find it here. What are your plans for after the current roadmap? Do you guys have any? What's your thoughts? Obviously, I think this roadmap currently at the moment, we've got weapons DLC. We also have the new weather or events in the world.
Yes, so we've got
natural
the weapons
disasters,
DLC. Sorry. Yes, we've got the weapons DLC coming. We've got the natural disasters DLC coming. We've got this other major update that I keep hinting at coming. However, you know, other than that stuff, which is the stuff we have capacity to actively work on, we're not planning stuff further than we can start working on it. So I would say that we really don't know, and we're planning on running a Discord poll when it's closer to the time for us to start to work on something new. I think we want to ask players, get players involved in that decision, and get some feedback there with a new Discord poll or equivalent. And yeah, you know, I really don't know. I think I feel a bit like a sports team manager or something, just saying, well, we're just got to focus on the next game and the next game. And I think to a sense, it's true. You know, we don't want to start sitting here dreaming. We want to really be thinking about what's next for the feature we're currently working on.
Yeah.
And how we can make that better.
Cool. And then we'll go on to the last question, which is actually my question, is when are we going to be able to get usable, placeable workbenches, i.e. mission static workbenches, so we could build our own bases in theory?
That could happen.
I know we can build bases at the moment, but that we actually have like workbench in our own custom place and so on.
Yeah, so I guess you want to be able to like spawn it as part of a vehicle as well, don't you? Kind of want to have
not necessarily
a rib editing zone on
not
your
necessarily,
but
the thing is, at the moment you're limited to obviously the current bases in the world.
Yeah.
So where you stay, because you always have to go back, obviously, whether you're creating your vehicle or you need to respawn your vehicle, you need to do something, you're always limited to a base, okay, as your main point in place. Whereas obviously we have the mission editor, so being able to say, okay, I want my base to be at the top of this mountain. You could, in theory, build the base up there using the mission editor and obviously building something, but we don't have the ability to put a workbench down there at the moment, if that makes sense. I would love one, obviously. I would love one to be on the back of my ship to build a helicopter, but I know that's pushing it. I think we spoke about that before. But yeah, just an idea of maybe having like a mission static workbench that we have 3 different sizes: small, medium, or large, and you can place it down when you place any static or environmental mod down, in theory.
Yeah, so I think that's a nice idea. I think that's something we'd probably want to be looking at some point. I think it's fairly straightforward to do, and it'd probably be a Lua function where you can spawn an edit grid, and then you can set them up in your custom location. You can place what you want to be your workbench and connect it to a grid, and so on. And I quite like your vision of stuff, because I think the mission editor is very good as a way for editing your tile. I know that a lot of our original content was made in our old tile editor, which is kind of the existing tile editor, which is what we use to create a lot of our tile content. And we've got a lot of logical pieces and rigging data in that editor. We're starting to wish, actually, we want that data to be in the same form of the mission editor, the location editor, because then you've got the situation where players can edit it, players can mod it, and that's something we've already started to do. I think with the train signals, I think I'm right in saying that is a moddable mission now. You can. Am I right in saying that?
Not from the last time I checked. Maybe this was a sneaky update that I missed.
I might just be describing an upcoming minor update then. But the idea is to replace the train signals with a mission that spawns train signals.
Yeah,
so
I think that
might have already happened. Actually, I think there might be a mission that already does this, that spawns the train signals.
Yeah,
and of course that means that any player can go in and edit the train signals, and they can have their custom train signals.
Yeah, whereas before, if we wanted that, so what I did, so a lot of players did, is they would have to modify the game vehicle. So actually go into the game folder and modify the game vehicle, and then do it. But what would happen then would be every single time you did an update, that obviously game vehicle would have been reset. So yeah, if it's custom mission, happy days. That means you can change it. That also means that we can ideally, in theory, if it's a custom vehicle, it means we can read it in Lua scripts then also. And that means if we can read it in Lua script, we can then theoretically have automatic train lines that change tracks using the Lua scripting, in theory.
Well, yes.
In theory, being the key word there, I got asked this question this week also myself, is because if you remember back in the day, we did the automatic rail network using just normal game pieces and a lot of microcontrollers and radios, and how the train, remember, used to run all along this island, I think, automatically. But but then we got the Lua scripting, which I think if I was to redo it now would be much more powerful and much more cleaner also, without having to use all radios and things like that to know where the train is. We could just do all of it in Lua. So yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think players frequently request more modding support. And there's a lot of areas in the game where we're like, we wish we'd just originally done this in Lua, because actually it would make it so easy to add the modding support in. Obviously, if it's just in the base source code, it can't be modded. We need to expose that via some kind of scripting interface for it to be moddable. And that's a really nice thing about moving stuff into the mission side of thing and getting data rigged there, is that it becomes a moddable element that players can go and play with. So yeah, I think Workbench will probably even be the most requested thing to get moved across into making it into kind of a mission kind of thing, or just adding support to spawn them via missions. So yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. I don't know when it would happen, but we can certainly add that to the list of
I'm sure a big
proposed minor updates, which is a very, very big list.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I won't take too much more time from you today. Obviously, I know that you are busy working on future updates, whether big or small. So I won't take up too much time. And on behalf of myself, thank you very much for coming and joining us and answering some of these questions. And I think also on behalf of the community, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear some of the things. I'm sorry we couldn't get through every single question today that we had. We couldn't answer 1,000 and ask 1,000 questions. But I think we've covered a lot of the main ones. I think there's probably about 600 or 700 of those questions are all regarding DLC update and when it's coming and what weapons it's going to be and if we can blow things up. But the rest of them, I think we've addressed most of them today, and hopefully also stayed away from some of the repeat questions, so which is ideally a good thing. So thank you very much for joining us, and I guess we'll see you again in a future Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on the channel. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye.